All right. Welcome, everyone, to a special, we'll call it Tuesday edition of Midweek Midrange. We're going to talk a little bit about the WNBA playoffs. I'm joined by Jasmine Brown of, I'll say Bleacher Report, but I wanted you to introduce yourself too, because it's got more to it than that. And then LaDarius, again, I could say belly up, but it has more to it than that too. So, Jasmine, welcome. Tell us who you are. Tell us how you've been. How you doing?
I'm good. Yes, Jasmine Brown. I'm currently a social programmer for Bleacher Report's HighlightHER, which is an all women's sports platform. So we do a lot of things to amplify the voices of women through the voice of a woman. So that's what we do.
Good. HighlightHER is a great follow on Twitter if you're interested in these kinds of things. They put all kinds of fun content. And Jasmine, I followed for a little while now. I got looped into following because of that kind of stuff. It's really cool stuff they have online. LaDarius, I say belly up sports, but again, you kind of have more than one niche, and it's within that too, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of hats. I don't have a hat rack, but it's a lot of hats. I write for Belly Up Sports, and as you mentioned, I write for Beyond Women's Sports, and I cover the WNBA. I write about women's wrestling. I write about softball. I'm anything within the realm of women's sports is what we cover at Beyond Women's Sports. I guess I'm looking forward to this conversation, and so it's because it's what I'm into now. So,
for sure, and I think that people that watch this show fairly regularly, we took a little bit of a sabbatical, just because. For those that don't know too much, I'm a school teacher during the day. School just started. I've been coaching football. It's been a lot. But we took a little bit of a couple weeks off. But we've been following WNBA fairly closely this year. It's the summer league. It's summer basketball. And playoffs are upon us. And so we need to make sure we got in some takes. I guess that way I can be wrong a few times before they get started. But I guess before we get too far, I want to make sure, Jasmine, do you have a team you're a big fan of? Obviously, as a person covering women's sports, you're a fan of the league. Obviously, the WNBA is a fantastic league to follow. It's great summer basketball. But is there a team you're particularly fond of just as a fan?
Always the Mystics forever. I'm from the DMV area, from Maryland. So everything Maryland except for, well, you're in Dallas, so I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. So everything else is DMV. Oh, and Dodgers. So, but yeah. I covered the Mystics for 4 years.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's a fun. I mean, Deladon, that's been a fun 4 years. It's up and down, lots of stuff to talk about. Yeah. Good deal. LaDarius, we talked about the WNBA going into their Olympic break before, but I guess I don't recall. Do you have a team? I mean, you're a big fan of the league. You said you're a Storm fan, I think.
Yeah, I'm a Seattle Storm fan. I've been a fan since Lauren Jackson. That's not giving away my age. So we'll just top it off there. And but I'm a Atlanta Falcons fan. I don't know. I'm a Cubs fan. So yeah, I'm getting it. If it was a punching bag, that's have I said I've cried? I'm not going to comment on that, but. I won't confirm or deny, but
once Matt Ryan goes away, y'all be fine.
Yeah. And then Breonna Stewart, her, and I'm like, I saw that on Twitter, and I was like, that just took. If I was on a boat that day, I had no sails. I've been stuck in the water. I was like, if that was keeping me going, and then I see Twitter, and then the wind just stops, and I'm like, well, I can't swim. I'll just wait for something to happen. So. That's kind of my sports journey there. Team.
Fair enough. So I was born in Houston and a Houston sports guy. I do follow the Wings, though, because the Comets have been gone for almost 15 years now. And I moved to Dallas about 9 years ago. And it's a team I was like, I've got no conflict here. So they've been fun. I will say I got into it the summer of Cam Beige when she had 53 points. And that was a really fun. They had Skylar Diggins, and Diggins is fun too. I'd frankly probably followed college women's basketball more because I'm a Texas fan, and Texas has a women's basketball team, so I'm a fan of that, right? But the Wings have been up and down, and I hope we're on the upswing. But we'll dive more into that in a second. We're going to dive into a segment called the Long Two, because this is the midweek mid-range. Which is a long 2-point jump shot. Some people like Daryl Morey might hate that, but that's what we do here at the midweek mid-range. And so my long two, I'm going to go one at a time. do either of y'all have any end of year award locks? Like 2 people you could guarantee are going to walk away with an award if you were putting money on in Vegas right now. Let's start with Jasmine. Jasmine, who would you put money on? What are your locks for your end of season awards?
I think Jonquel Jones is definitely my MVP. She's been on a tear. I mean, an absolute tear. She's been on a tear, but like this year, it's just to another level. My teams it's all Connecticut for me because most improved for me is also Brianna Jones. So that's my favorite. From her first year to now, I honestly didn't even think she was going to make the roster, but now she's balling. So those are my 2 locks right now.
For sure. And Connecticut went from, shot away up to the number 1 overall seed. We'll talk more about the playoff bracket in a moment, but that clearly something went right, right? LaDarius, what 2 locks do you have? As you're looking at the end of season awards, you got anything?
To piggyback after what Jasmine said, Jonquel Jones is if you look at the word lock in the dictionary, it has to be Jonquel Jones. There's really no second. It's the gap is that wide to me. And to kind of piggyback, what Jasmine was saying, she's averaged 19.4 points a game, 11.2, rebounds per game. He's only one of 2 players this year to have averaged a double this season. Listen, she didn't play in 5 games, but with her, they're 24-3. And to me, to be an MVP, you have to directly impact your team. And when you look at Jonquel Jones, it's really hard to find a case for a second person. And I couldn't even think of a second person. Like, I know players in the league, but I could not put a second person to say she's in Jonquel Jones's, class this year. And I had, most improved for Brianna Jones as well. But I also look at Coach of the Year. Obviously has to be Kurt Miller. It's going to be, to me, listen, 26-6. They won their last 14 games.
Since that Commissioner's Cup, they have not lost.
Yeah, and since we, my storm beat, it's like they're like, we like, okay, you know what? They never lost a game, and listen, and they've made the playoffs under Miller since 2017. The only year they didn't make it was his first year there in 2016. To kind of piggyback, I've also had another lock. I don't know if we can do 3 locks. I guess I'll shoot a 3-pointer and we'll see what happens.
You're taking a step back on our mid-range. I'm hearing. I got you. I think we're all unanimous on Jonquel Jones, and I really think that speaks to just the dominance of Jonquel Jones. To think of a player that will guard your big, regardless of what kind of big it is, perimeter, inside, whatever, and also step behind the 3-point line. I think that she's got this diverse skill set that really is key to them winning so many games. And I don't know how you could define most valuable outside of that. Statistically, it's 19 points a game, 11 rebounds, But just watching them play, it all works around her. I'm interested. Y'all both said Brianna Jones. I was going to ask, is there any way we can get my girl, again, Dallas Enrique on there? I think the deal there is that there's not like a rise in the same way as there was with Brianna Jones, right? Enrique never had not that Brianna Jones was awful, but like you mentioned, Jasmine, there was talk about not making the team early on, right, in her career. And it's a little bit different than like Enrique was a top whatever pick in Notre Dame. We all remember the shot and that kind of stuff. How about change up the question just because it sounds like we talk a lot about the Conneticut Sun. Is there any award you see not going to a member of the Conneticut Sun that you can think of off the top of your head? I'll start LaDarius this time because I started with Jasmine last time, but I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, so feel free to think. But I wonder about 6th Woman of the Year. I wonder if that goes to the Aces and Kelsey Plum. That might be cheating a little bit because she did start some games. But LaDarius, have you thought anything about anyone not on the Sun winning an award?
Outside the Sun, when you look at Rookie of the Year, I think I look at Michaela Onyewer of the Liberty. She averaged, for the rookie, she led all rookies with 8, almost 9 points a game. And she's played 22 and a half minutes. But also another one, I think you mentioned the six person, player of the year. But I also look at defensive player of the year. I think Sylvia Fowles there, I think, is a situation where I can definitely see, if any, talking non-Sun, because it might be like a Sun sweep. But when I look at Sylvia Fowles this season, I can also kind of seeing that go her way as well. So my two be rookie of the year and rookie of the year and defensive player of the year, and like a six player. You can divide the award between Plum and Hamler. I lean toward Plum, but that you can't go wrong if you can splice the award. Great, but those are to me a couple of non-Sun award winners we might see at the end of the season.
Gotcha. Jasmine, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think for a defensive player, I would definitely go Brittany Sykes for the Sparks. She's very, she's there defensively. I don't have her numbers on top of my head, but she's put up, the block shots that she's put up, the chase down blocks. She's always been known for the chase down blocks. And just the defense, just locking up. She reminds me of like a stronger version of TRP, who I think was a very underrated defensive player in the W. She's not playing anymore, but she's definitely somebody that Brittany Sykes. She's definitely somebody that I would choose for defensive player. And also, it's kind of not really now, but like Benaja Laney, she was playing well too. Like, I think she's a good pick. Although I think the team, the Liberty kind of balanced out a little bit as the season progressed. Because Benaja was averaging 20 points and she almost had that record. She almost had. I think she's like one game away from having that 20 average record. But I would think. But yeah, for six women, I think probably between Hamby and Plum as well. So.
Well, and you mentioned Benaja Laney. We do need to give her flowers just because she's kind of, because there's so many big names in New York, she kind of gets to be the forgotten name in New York, I think, I don't mean to say casual pejoratively, but for casual WNBA fans, right? Like, she gets left off, and she had a phenomenal, like you mentioned, almost historic season. I don't know how it shakes out in an award, but there'll probably be a first or second or third team something, or it's something, right? She did have a phenomenal year. Mm-hmm. That is the regular season, and we are going to move on and put that behind us, as the WNBA is, and move on to a segment called Hot Tea Cold Brew. This is because the show is sponsored by Yeti. Jasmine, Hot Tea Cold Brew is brought to you by Yeti. Coolers, cups, and koozies, the go-to shop for keeping things hot or cold, just like all of these basketball stories. Yeti is also based in Austin, Texas. Check out the links and all our social media handles for all your insulated tailgating, camping, and daily life needs. I messed that up. Sorry, Yeti. But it's basically like, is this hot tea, like the Kermit sipping meme, or is this like cold brew? Like, I don't need to worry about that. And it's really just a chance for us to ask some questions about the league. Since LaDarius has done this before once, I'm going to start there. But the first topic I have for you, LaDarius, is hot tea or cold brew. Liz Cambage returning, because she just got back from her COVID protocol, or I guess 2 weeks out with COVID, makes the Aces the favorites in the WNBA. They're the number 2 overall seed. We talked a lot about the number 1 overall seed, Sun. We haven't talked as much about Asia Wilson and the Aces. So what do you think, LaDarius?
Boy, that's a legitimately tough question, because I have, the Sun and the Aces right there. As far as Liz Cambage being back, I'm gonna say, I'm gonna go hot tea on this. I'm gonna go contrarian. I initially went cold brew in my head. I'm gonna go hot tea, because listen, she's still throwing the team with in points per game. She's leading the team in block. She's still an integral part of the Aces. Still got Asia Wilson. You still got Chelsea Gray. I could go on reading the names off, but I don't want to take time away from Jasmine, because but you look at Asia Wilson, and you look at, we mentioned Kelsey Plum, we mentioned Hamlet. This team is pretty stacked, and then you get back Liz Cambage. It's very, very hard to say, does that move them? Because the real question is, does that move them to be ahead of the Sun? Because that to me is the question. because and to me, when you have Liz Cambridge, like I say, when she's there, listen, they're 19-6 when she's there. They're 5-2 without her. So, but having her there more, I would lean toward the fact of saying, I would go hot tea because it doesn't hurt to have Liz Cambridge, it doesn't hurt at all to add to that talent, and it may give them a slight edge. So I'll go hot tea.
Yeah, and I mentioned a pre-pod that I'm a Cambage fan from her days in Dallas, and so I want to hear Jasmine's thought on this, but I'm really high on Cambage in general, so I adding her to any team helps. Jasmine, what are you gonna say?
I feel like, I mean, I'll go hot tea on it. I think you don't know how a team is going to be in the playoffs. I mean, one team can be excellent in the regular season and then get either bounced out, or they're not that great and then it just clicks. So I feel right now in the regular season, I feel like not having Cam Bajan kind of helped open up the floor a little bit. But it's just like that playoff, that playoff time is different, and I think that having Cam Bage would definitely help, especially against the Sun. And I haven't really checked up the bracket, but if somehow, some way they ended up facing the Lynx, they would definitely need that, need her shots for that, because they are just bullies. So yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see, but if we kind of see the kind of struggles with when she gets in, it'll definitely cause some talks and controversy after the season's over.
Well, Liz is not new to controversy, so that would be on brand. Which is part of the reason I like her, if I'm being really honest. I think the thing is, so I'm going to go hot tea as well. I think the big thing for her will be if for them she's okay playing 20 to 24 minutes, right? Then as a defense, as an opposing team, you got to prepare for the double big lineup with her and Asia. You got to prepare for the smaller lineup where Asia's the 5. You got to do a lot of preparation for a lot of different things. But you mentioned, it's not just X's and O's and statistics. These are people. Liz can sometimes not be okay with sitting on the bench. She cannot be okay with sometimes how things are going. And if she wants to be playing more like 35 minutes, all of a sudden that eats away at kind of that chemistry you're talking about, Jasmine. They've had a good couple weeks without her. So I don't know that I think it's hot tea because I think there's a chance it happens. I don't know that I'm willing to go to Vegas and bet on it happening. No Vegas pun intended, I guess. But I do like watching her play because she's fun and enthusiastic, and frankly, when she's on, she's dominant. But I wonder, if they can really strike that balance, or if that'll be more delicate than that. The next hot tea cold brew topic is that a first round team will make it to the finals. For those that are learning the WNBA, and I feel like I need to make sure we clarify this because we want to bring in new fans, right? The top 2 seeds get a 2-round bye, 3 and 4 get a 1-round bye, and then 5 through 8 play a game, right? That's called the first round. And so 5 through 8 making it to the finals is theoretically more difficult. They've played some, single elimination type games. This year, that'd be the Mercury, Sky, Wings, and Liberty. So obviously, as a fan, I'm going to say, yes, the Wings win the whole thing, and that's how that's going to go. But Jasmine, do you see any of those 4 teams having a shot at the finals?
Yeah, I mean, I feel the dominance of all 4. I'm going to go kind of cold brew on it. I think it's top heavy. So I think they are. I mean, if I don't know, if like the Wings or somebody like pull a Giants and go in a wild card at 9-7 and go all the way to the Super Bowl, then I'm gonna be like, okay, what just happened here? But I personally don't see that happening, and I think all four teams have a chance to go. So, especially if you have a double bye.
I got you. LaDarius, hot tea, cold brew. Do you see any of the Mercury, Sky, Wings, or Liberty having a shot to make it all the way to the finals?
I'm going to kind of go, you can't go middle T-brew on this. So
put a couple ice cubes in it or something.
just drop a couple, leave it sit there, and come back and like, okay, I'm ready.
Okay.
If there was one team, I would say the Phoenix Mercury, simply because of the fact that you have Diana Taurasi, and then you got Brittany Griner. And when I look, Brittany Griner, look, she's been a Defensive Player of the Year. And then you throw in the fact they got Skylar Diggins-Smith. Am I saying could there a chance? Absolutely. Never say never. But to me, when I look at the Wings and the Liberty, I like both teams, but I just feel something's not there to make the long-term run. But like the Sky, I've been kind of cold brew on, because I've been kind of cold brew on them. But if there was one team I would say that would have a decent shot of making a run, would be the Phoenix Mercury, because Diana Taurasi, she's a 2-time champion, and to me, you can never count out experience. Stats are great. As someone who loves numbers, stats are great. Stats are fantastic. But when I look at, when you have Diana Taurasi there, you have that veteran presence. You got Brittany Griner. You have that been there, done that mentality. And then you have Skylar Diggins-Smith. They could low-key make a run. But once again, I think like Jasmine said, if you run across the team like the Lynx, that could be interesting. It's sad for me to say, if you play, my Storm, that's I don't even want to get into that. But
they've had a rough end of the season, to be fair. Right?
Yeah. Well, that's a very congealed way of putting it. And, but if you run across a team like the Lynx, that would be an interesting matchup for me to watch. So if anybody, I would say of those four, I would definitely say the Mercury would have the best shot.
Gotcha. I think the Mercury is interesting too because of how many games. So you mentioned Diana Taurasi. Part of the reason they're in this position is because of how many games she missed early in the year, right? Had Taurasi played the whole season at the level she's capable of playing, right? Maybe they're not even in this bracket in the first place. I want to be a homer and say that Enrique is going to go in fuego and ride to the top. I think they're just young, right? The Dallas Wings are just Charlie Collier. They're just young, and so that they're even here is nice, and I should just appreciate it. But I want more, man. I want more. So that's where it's coming one day, right? If we can keep them all in Dallas, which has been a problem in the past, we can keep them all in Dallas, we'll be okay. I really think, though, like you're saying, the Sun and the Aces are so heavy at the top in the 1-2. They don't have to worry about the single game elimination early on. It's really it's a lopsided chance. Last segment we're going to jump into here is called the open container. And this is really, I think, going to be, I moved it to the end. I think it's going to be the longest segment where we talk more just open, take the lid off your Yeti, call it open container. But about what y'all's predictions are. We've alluded to how dominant the Sun are. The Aces sitting right there, bringing in a all-star in Liz Cambage out of after 2 weeks. We'll see what she's like coming back from COVID. But I'm gonna start. I've just been going back and forth, so I'll end with LaDarius starting this one, and then go to Jasmine. Make your pick. What do you see happening? How do you see this shaking out, LaDarius?
Boy, well, I'll step in the box here. I kind of went back on. I went back and forth. I do believe in the fact that the Mercury has the potential to make a run. I do believe in that. But I think at the end of the day, it boils down to the two best teams in the league. I think this we're going to see a Sun and Aces final. I think, and what's interesting here is that when it comes to offensive and defensive rating, they're 1-2, both of them. So, but what I'm also interested in the matchup to look at is the chess match between Curt Miller and Bill Laimbeer. They're two of the best coaches in the league. With Bill Laimbeer, and as you alluded to earlier with Cambage, and in that lineup, and how he can make Asia being a 5, Cambage maybe not playing 35 minutes, and then you look at the other side with Curt Miller, like John Quill Jones, you got Dewana Bonner. It's going to be a chess match to see who guards who. Like, we can have an idea of who guards who, but to me, if you ask me today who I think is going to win, boy, it's going to probably change next week. But I'm going to go with the team who I feel has been, who's going to take home the awards, who's going to, completely, who's been great all year, continuity wise. I'm going to go with the Sun. And to me, the gap, like I said, the gap between the Sun and the Aces is literally kind of, it's very minimal. It's like essentially flipping a coin. It's about how you perceive it and how you see it. But to me, I'm interested in the chess match between the coaches, how the lineups are going to shake out. I'm curious to see, Cambridge, John Quill. It's an exciting time. But you ask me today, I'm going to give it to the Sun to finally win. They lost 2019 to the Mystics. Yeah, I threw that in for a very specific reason. I know how to play to the crowd. But so I think, I think now the Sun get their championship.
And Jasmine, you're kind of nodding. They've been the best team all year? It feels like. Are you also riding with the Sun? What are your picks?
Yeah, I'm going with the Sun. I feel like how LaDarius was talking about the matchups and how they match up. Like I feel like for Kurt, he'll have to factor in like Cambage, and then for Lambert, like he has to factor in Alyssa Thomas. Luckily, nobody had to factor for her pretty much for the season. So now it's like come playoff time, it's like it's a whole added factor. But you can also, if you want to compare, you can also talk about how that may affect the Sun if Alyssa is back in the roster. It's like how Liz will affect the roster for the Aces. So if they do match up in the finals, that's a lot of storylines there. So it'll be really interesting to see how that matches up. But I mean, of course, I like chaos. So 1 and 2 going, nobody wants that, so but it'll be fun to see a random Lynx Mercury something.
well, you say random as we're trying to invite people to watch more WNBA basketball. I wonder how many. I feel like Jonquel Jones is one of the more under the wraps names as far. We all know Asia Wilson. We're learning Asia Wilson if we didn't before because of like dominance in the Olympics and dominance the Aces last couple years, and she had a great bubble and those kind of things, right? We remember Cambage because frankly, as much about the off the court antics as the ones on it. She had the big 53-point game the summer I was getting into this a few years back. The Mercury that LaDarius mentioned have like the old guard of stars, right? That we all know the names of from their college days. We remember Diana Taurasi at UConn. Remember Skylar Diggins, like those names that we can't forget. Whereas Jonquel Jones is kind of under the radar, and she's the face of this also a little bit under the radar franchise. I'll say like on national merit, but not on the radar if you're paying attention. They're dominant. Is it better for the league if someone else wins this thing, Jasmine?
You know what? I feel like in terms of the finals, I think it'll be good for the Sun to win it. I feel like people forget that they took the Mystics to Game 5.
Yeah.
It was literally back and forth. It was just the Mystics year because they beat the Aces, and then after all that was said, but I feel like that whole team is very underrated. Dejanay Carrington is very underrated too, even though she was, known for being great at Baylor. But I just feel like everybody that was on that roster is underrated. Dewana, like everybody. It's just even Kurt, I feel is underrated too. So I just feel like the whole team needs to win. So people can respect them. Now, will they? That remains to be seen because the same names and faces always make the list of stuff. But it'll be great. It'll be great for them as a whole to win it, in my opinion.
Completely. And the truth is, like the way. So if you're trying to invite NBA fans into the WNBA, they fall in love with the Durant, tall giant guy, goes out and shoots threes. There's a big Dirk movement here in Dallas. The giant that shoots from the distance and can do inside and outside things is Jonquel Jones. Like that exists on this team. And it's just funny to me that she does not get the same. And it's just, she's also not like showing up in, the outfits, Twitters that are all pointing out who's wearing what. And she's also not as flashy in that. Right. And so maybe that's just not who she is. I can't speak like I know a whole lot about her personally or anything like that, but that may just not be who she is. And I wonder if winning a finals, having some dominant games is good for her and good for them, or if it's like the casual fans like, wait, what happened with my aces? I don't know. LaDarius, what do you think?
I think I'm going to pick up what Jasmine said. I think it's good for the league if the Sun win, because there's a lot of underdogs on that team. To me, I look at Kurt Miller and look at his journey to even be the coach. I mean, he had coaching, come from the college ranks, spent a year as an assistant, I believe, with the Sparks, before he took the head job, replaced, I believe, with Ann Donovan. His first year, listen, wasn't a great year, but 2017 and on, you started to see some things. It wasn't on the radar type of things. And like I alluded to earlier, like Jasmine said, like they pushed the Mystics to 5 games. That was a very good Mystics team. They pushed him to 5. And to me, Jonquel Jones, it's surprising to me, like the way that she plays does not get more recognition. Because when you see how the NBA is, the NBA has now literally, if you're guys like Anthony Davis, you're guys like Dirk, you're guys like, if you can shoot from the perimeter, that's Jonquel Jones. And what's surprising to me is that she's not getting that attention. Is that, like you say, sometimes personality matters. She's there. She just goes in there and just does her job. I'm not trying to compare her to Liz, 2 different people, but like Jonquel Jones's personality, maybe that could be a factor, maybe not. But at the end of the day, it does not change the fact of how she plays on the court and how she affects everything that goes on for the Conneticut Sun. So I think at the end of the day, when you look at the Sun and you look at the stories, for the casual fan, they may worry about what about the Aces. Look, they may worry about what about my Storm. Because to me, I understand, because listen, if Brianna Stewart's not 100% healthy, listen, great story. Sue's great. I like Sue Bird. I like Jewel Lloyd. But listen, I think, there's a shift. And I think at the end of the day, when I look at the Sun and the Aces, I think for the Sun to get that win, to get that championship, I think it would mean a lot, not just for the league, but for that franchise, because you can see them like laying brick by brick by brick, and winning the championship kind of completes the house. And I think, to me, it'd be a great story, and it would be fitting that the best team in the league wins the top prize.
Right?
Like in the Super Bowl, any sport, you kind of see like the best team gets there. Maybe sometimes you get an upset or two, but I think in this case, I think the Sun find a way to win. I think it'd be just a great story. Well,
and they've got toughness and grit, and the classic American sports story is all about toughness and grit. You mentioned Sue Bird. I've got Sue Bird sneakers right here. Like I get those faces, right? Like I really like I enjoy those faces as well. It just feels like they're changing, right? And they're changing, and it's like, are we going to catch people in the change or not? Or are they going to know who Brianna Jones is this time in 3 years? I don't know. I kind of would hope the latter, but we'll see. I think people have, as much as I love watching Sue Bird control a basketball game, I think people have trouble letting go of that old guard for someone new like the Conneticut Sun.
Yeah, and my fear is like if Brianna Stewart isn't healthy and the Sun win it all, or anybody wins it all other than the Storm, I have a fear that article is going to come out and be like, what would happen if the Sun or World Wide win a championship? But what if Brianna Stewart was healthy? Like,
yeah, exactly.
And it comes out, and I'm just like, okay, but can we just focus on this first? And then
right, yeah, absolutely. To piggyback what like Jasmine hit it around the head. I think it's the changing of the narrative. It's like, well, wait a minute, listen. I'm a big Storm fan, but I'm also a fan of the league first and foremost. Playing the what if game, and you see it all the time. You see it across sports when a team that no one expects to win, you go like, it's just like, for example, like to kind of cross in basketball. Like if the Lakers, like I think the Lakers did make the play. Well, what if LeBron was healthy? Like, let's not focus on that. Let's talk about the team that actually won, because that in itself is a good story. LeBron's a great story, but at the end of the day, it's about trying to understand that there's a shift going on. And to me, and like Jasmine alluded to, you're going to get those, well, what if Dinah Taurasi was healthy all season?
Or
what if Brianna Stewart did? Like, you're going to get more what if stories than actually talking about the Conneticut Sun. And A, that's not fair to the Conneticut Sun. And B, that's not fair to players like John Quill Jones. It's not fair to DeWanda Bonner. It's not fair to Kurt. It's not fair to anybody in that organization. Because understand, Kurt Miller built the team. He's the general manager as well. So to me, it's kind of it mitigates. I'm like, let's focus on, like, listen, the Aces are great, the Storm are great. No one's saying, putting them aside, but it's like, look, at the end of the day, it's shifting. So it's okay if the Sun, you never heard of them, great. Learn about them.
It is shifting. But wait for those stories if the New York Liberty upset the Phoenix Mercury on Thursday night and go on to play the Storm without Brianna Stewart. There will be one face that, and I like watching UNESCO play, but it's going to be, the whole story is going to go to the UNESCO show if they win one playoff game, like for better or worse. Like, she's fun to watch. I get the intrigue, but it's going to, for better or worse, become the UNESCO show, because then they would get Seattle, and we're a little banged up, we've all said, right? And then, like, all of a sudden they're in a 5-game, like that. All of this, you're gonna work your way very quickly to that. I like watching her play. I don't know if I'm ready for all those stories. You're a social media person. Are you gonna get into all that, Jasmine?
Listen. I'm not right now. Nope.
We'll do a whole other show.
Yeah. We can do another one after.
I got you.
A spontaneous one, like, yo, y'all, you send a DM, hey, let's hop on right quick.
For sure. The last thing we do here, Jasmine, is a little bit silly. We just get a 24-second takeoff. Just if you've got anything beating about basketball, you try and get out. Do you have any buzzer beater take, LaDarius, because you've done this before? Or I guess I could start one myself. I don't have a whole lot to say. Anything?
Right now. I don't know. I can't think right now. Here we go.
Wait.
or you. You can start it.
So it's like a game show.
Do you got one? If you have one, LaDarius, you're up. I'll let you go.
It's like playing Double Dare. When someone says dare, then you don't know the answer. It says Double Dare. We toss it back. You're like, but there's no physical challenge here. So, hopefully there's no slime here either. So if we're good there.
That's behind that door that they got.
Behind that door. Oh, wait. Was that a sandwich? Look, sweet. And then bam, that's the trap. That's the trap. Never tell them your favorite foods. That's how they trap you. I do actually, I do want to talk about one thing in particular.
What you got?
So I want to go over 24 seconds. I don't want to get a shot clock violation. Okay. So the one quick thing I do want to talk about is understanding the league and understanding that the playoff format that we have now. I think somewhere down the road we have to look at it and maybe fine tune it, because while I appreciate the fact that it's all the top teams, no matter what the conference is, I think giving that extra time, I think, is interesting. I'm not saying the NBA format is great, but I think the way that the WNBA has it, having the best teams in the league, I think that's, to me, is a great format. Because at the end of the day, you're not putting in a team who doesn't deserve to be in there, but you're giving the fans, you're giving the product the best teams out there, and you're not letting conference kind of get in the way of that. So to me, that's kind of always got to me with with the NBA is like when you look at the NBA, and it's like when you see a 1-8 matchup with a team that's the 8 seed's going to get mollywopped, but they have to get in because they're in the East or Western. So you got to put them in.
Yeah,
you got to put them in, and I'm like, well, that doesn't seem fair because like when you look at the 1 year, the West had literally pretty much, I would say, almost 75% of that conference was over 500, but you had to gotta go to the East because we gotta do conferences. So that's just kind of something that's kind of been on my mind, is that change the way, with the WNBA, keep the format the way it is, maybe alter the go ahead.
The one thing I do like about the WNBA, and I'm not going to do it in 24 seconds, but my take I'll get off here is I gave you plenty of time. The thing I do like is that this first and second round being single elimination in the same way baseball's done this, and really as a guy that my playing background is football, every game is so important, right?
Mm-hmm.
There just aren't a football season's not very long. A single playoff game, I mean, the Mercury are playing the New York Liberty. Griner could get in foul trouble. Skylar Diggins could break a shoelace. Like something crazy could happen in a single game, right? Like something silly or wacky or whatever could happen in a single game. On the other side, with Dallas and Chicago, Arike could get 40. Like who knows what happens there, right? Like things can happen in a single game that make those more exciting. Whereas in the NBA, the other basketball league, we're all familiar with, I will say for the most part, in a 7-game series, if both teams are healthy, the best team wins. Like I don't really, unless there's an injury, I don't really judge that too differently, right? And I think that the fun and spontaneity of that is good for this league, right? If you're watching the games, that's exciting. And so I like that about this, and I'm excited to see the games tip off on Thursday night. We're recording on a Tuesday, so you got a couple nights before they start. And then, like I said, there'll be 2 teams eliminated on Thursday, and that's kind of crazy. Jasmine, I've talked for a long time. Do you have anything like you're excited about? You're on social media all the time with this stuff. This is like your wheelhouse. You got anything you're excited about leading up to Thursday night?
I think it'll be, it's not going to happen, but I think it'd be fun with the playoff format to have 1-8 playoff and a single elimination. It would be 1-1-1 the reverse way. And then if you advance, then you can play that 5 game. Just make it sound like March Madness style. Yeah. And it's like, let's say the Wings and the Sun play and Arike hits a buzzer beater.
Oh,
that would make Twitter go off. I'm like, oh my God.
That would make my Twitter go off. Like I'd be all, for sure. Yeah.
So it's just like, it'll be, it's not going to happen, but it'll be really fun. But I also think, I'm going to cross here, but I think it'll be fun to have the NBA mock copy that format, how the W playoffs is right now. Because I don't see the reason for a 1-8 to have a 7-game series.
Yeah.
I just don't see that. So I do think that, I know people complain about the first rounds having like only one chance to get in, but or maybe a best out of 3 or whatever. But like, I do think that it's fun. It causes chaos. Nobody wants to go by the book every single time. And I feel like the NBA should copy that format and have a single elimination of the lower seeds and just scrap the 1-8 on the East and West.
Yeah.
Well, and think about how fun it was. I don't know what y'all's opinions are on Steph Curry, but if we're going to talk about the NBA, watching that like play-in thing they did, it was almost 1 game. Anyway, like I think 1 game elimination is fun, and half of the WNBA playoffs are 1 game elimination. I think that adds to this. It's like you said, Jasmine, it's just chaos. And frankly, unless you're really, I know like LaDarius is a diehard Storm fan. You mentioned you're a Mystics fan, but as long as it's not your team in the chaos is the most fun option.
Yeah.
Listen, I had to watch Shea Petty take us out last year, so that was not fun. That was not fun at all. But then I had to wait and see if Arike was going to hit that shot for us to get in, because he shot 2 back-to-back ones and then missed the last one. That's how we got in. So then we had to watch Shay take us out. But it was good though. It was good for us to see. And then the end of the battle, like the end of the year, of the season, and always, for some reason, that 8th spot always comes down to the final day. So it's just fun to see people talk about the scenarios, and people are getting heavy into it. Like, oh, if so and so happens and this, and people are asking questions over and over, like, what's the scenario? And then like people, it's fun, it creates dialogue. So I like the parody that the WNBA has, and hopefully that can become a thing moving forward.
For sure. Jasmine, as we wrap up, tell people where all they can find you and your work at. Obviously, you mentioned you work with HighlightHER and Bleacher Report on social media side of things. You're very fun and active on Twitter, and so I want to highly recommend. But where can people find you best?
Yes, if you want to laugh on Twitter, find me Jasmine_D_Brown. And then on Instagram, it's J Danielle Brown. I post funny dinosaur pun memes on there.
Awesome.
LaDarius, where can people find you at?
I'm interested in the dinosaur, but you can find me on social at LaDarius_Brown on Twitter. Check me out on Instagram at LaDarius_Brown. Check out Beyond Women's Sports, also writing for Belly Up Sports. So I'm around, as I like to say. There's never a dull moment, I like to say. I'm always around.
Never a dull moment. Again, you can find me and my personal stuff at Ainsworth512 on Twitter and Instagram. This show is on Twitter and Instagram at Midweek Midrange. Hopefully you found us on YouTube and you hit subscribe down below. Make sure you like and do all those good things to help the show. And as always, thank you for pulling up to the Midweek Midrange. Y'all take care, everybody.